Hey guys, the Joe Madden Sports Podcast here, joined this afternoon by Coach James Young of Sports Grid. Coach, happy Thursday, NBA draft tonight.
Yeah, it's been a interesting I would say 12 to 24 hours with the draft, a ton of movement, speculation, who's going where. But luckily all the madness ends or I guess starts at 8 p.m. with the first pick.
It is absolutely going to be insane. I think we'll see a little bit of calm after the top 10. What are you thinking? You think things will calm down after that?
It's interesting because there's this whole debate on what's going to happen. Number one with Jabari Smith and Paulo Banchero. Paulo was like a plus 1400 earlier on in the week. I think on Sunday. By last night, he had went past Chet Holmgren for the second best chances to be the number one draft pick. We woke up this morning in the East Coast, and Paulo was the favorite. Then all of a sudden, Adrian Wojnarowski dropped one of his Woj bombs. All of a sudden, people make their bets. All the betting sites froze and pulled everything off the websites about 2 minutes later, and they came back up. And there's been a lot of fluctuation. So I think it speaks to honestly the fact that we don't have a clear cut number one player. No, like can't miss. There isn't a Shaq or an Iverson or a Dwight Howard or a LeBron. There's not that type of guy to pick number one. So there's going to be a lot of movement. But I do say, kind of like what you saw in the NFL draft, I think this is going to be a really crazy night in the NBA.
Now, we have Orlando coming in here with the first pick. From a coaching perspective, if you're Orlando, who do you go for?
I actually would go for Chet Holmgren, and then
Okay.
second, I would go Paulo Banchero. The issue I have with Jabari Smith is a couple of things that's been well documented. One, very inconsistent play at Auburn, didn't always show up when the lights were the brightest. Inconsistent defensive effort. And then for me, the biggest thing is moving him over to Orlando, plays the same position as Wagner, who they just drafted with the seventh pick last year. So I'm a little worried that it's too much of an overlap. That's why I like someone more like a Chet Holmgren, who is a weak side shot blocker, pick and pop four, really good defensively. Could be a guy that could shoot 60% from the floor, 40 from three, 85% from the line, but he'll take a little bit of time. And then also Banchero, which would be intriguing because he's more of a low post threat than a Jabari Smith. He would be a good complement at the 3-4 spot with Wagner.
It's going to be fireworks to see who goes first here, Coach. Do you have a prediction of anyone else that you think, well, firstly, who you think will be in that top 10, but then any sleepers as well that you have in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you're going to look at, I like Chet number one, but if you really want to go by what you're seeing right now, you're going to probably look at Jabari Smith going one, Chet Holmgren going two, followed by Paulo Banchero going three. That's what everybody's been saying. Um, Jaden Ivey could go four. It's going to be interesting what happens at the four spot, Joe. A lot of talk here in New York City about the New York Knicks packaging and mortgaging a big part of their future to move up to the number four spot to take Jaden Ivey, the guard out of Purdue, to pair him with RJ Barrett in the backcourt in Gotham for the next 10 or so years. So that is where it starts to get interesting. A lot of other teams, Indiana's trying to move up. Detroit hopes Ivy falls to five. So you're going to have a lot
Yeah.
of movement at that four spot. If Sacramento keeps the fourth pick, I actually think they go a little bit different. I think they go with Keegan Murray out of Sacramento
Oh, okay.
as the four pick, allows Sabonis to go to the five, play Keegan Murray at the four spot. If that happens, Jaden Ivey, I like to go five to Detroit. Indiana, I'm going to pull a little bit of an upset. I'm going to go with Shaden Sharp, the young kid out of Kentucky at six. I think he's someone that is a dynamic, has a very, very high ceiling. People haven't seen him play because he went to Kentucky, but didn't actually play in the games at Kentucky. But a team like Indiana, who's probably going to trade Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner, that is a sleeper play at plus money if you can find it on your books. Shaden Sharp to go six. Benny Mathurin out of Arizona, seven to Portland. I think he slides in safely. Do watch out for Portland, though, folks. There's rumors that they may be trading that pick to Toronto for OG Anunoby has been reported. I don't know if that happens, and may have to see how it falls. 8 is one of my next sleepers, AJ Griffin, the plug-and-play 3-and-D guy out of Duke. I think he's dynamic. I think he's the best shooter in the draft. He's got great upside, very young, one of the youngest players in this draft. And I think he slides in perfectly with that young team with the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 9, Ousmane Dieng. I've had him on my as number 9 for the better part of 3 or 4 days. He has moved up to the point where if you want to take him in the top 10, you're looking at minus money. He could go 9 or even to 8 to New Orleans. And then Dyson Daniels, the dynamic point guard out of the G League Ignite. I have him going number 10 to the Washington Wizards.
This is going to be crazy, especially if New York does trade up with Sacramento. What do you think New York would have to trade to get that 4th spot?
Well, I think what New York is going to have to do, they have to do a collection of picks and young players in order to move it. Something of mine of if you want to keep Sabonis as a 4, maybe you do a sign and trade with Mitchell Robinson and then a young player, maybe like an Emmanuel Quickly, plus their first round pick number 11 and Dallas's number 1 pick in 2023 with along with 1 or 2 second round picks. You got to literally back the truck up, the Brinks truck, and back it up to try and get Jaden. Joe, here's the thing about Jaden. There's been a lot of misconception, and even in New York a little bit about, is he overrated? You got to understand, folks, if you've watched anything with college basketball and Purdue, that is not an NBA style offense. Jaden Ivey needs shooters around him, room to operate with an open lane. He'll get that with a wider 3-second lane in the NBA, along with not having a dominant low post player like Edey or Travion Williams that you had at Purdue. You look at Jaden Ivey, Joe, and if you're in New York, you are looking at probably another version of Donovan Mitchell. And everybody still has nightmares of the day that Phil Jackson took Frank Ntilikina because he could run the triangle and pass on Donovan Mitchell. I don't think New York wants to make that mistake again.
Absolutely. Now, is there anyone else that you're predicting will go later in the draft, but you think some coaches are overlooking at the moment?
Well, guys I think are going to go later in the draft, Joe, and then according to, let's say, what FanDuel has on their positioning is, I think a guy like a Jalen Duren, I think he's going to go past his mark. He's at 10.5 is his number, but it's heavily juiced to the over at minus 158. I think Duren is a great possibility to go to a team like the Charlotte Hornets at 13. If you do see that AJ Griffin is gone, you could look at New York taking him at the number 11 spot. Mark Williams, the other big man, he's moved to over 13.5 as well at minus 240. That's because people are looking at the fact that he probably isn't getting picked or he's being projected. Dyson Daniels, I talked about him, over 7.5 at plus 134. I think that is a nice little play that you want to look at. But it's going to be interesting, Joe, because not only the fact of the picks being made, I think there's a lot of movement, a lot of jockeying for position. Does the Knicks trade out of 11 if they don't get someone that they think they like? Does a team like Portland, who's made some moves, they got Jeremy Grant last night, do they try to get out of that 7th spot and get a guy like an OG Anunoby? Does Washington move out of the 9th spot? There's going to be a lot of movement tonight. So if you remember the NFL draft with the trades and the flurries of what's going on, I suspect that you will see plenty of chaos tonight.
It's going to be phenomenal to watch, Coach. What's happening tonight and this week on Sports Grid?
Well, I already did 2 shows today. I'm on with you. I'll go on and do BetMGM tonight with Trista Crack and Quentin Mayo. I'll do that tonight at 7:40, right before the draft. I'll be on with Scott Farrell in a little bit. I'll go on at 4:25 as we break down the NBA draft and all the comings and goings in the NBA. I'll be on with Gabe and Cam at some point between 6 and I think 7 o'clock to go over draft stuff. And then myself, Ben Stevens and Kevin Walsh for the 2nd year in a row will do an NBA draft on Sirius XM channel 159 and all the Sports Grid radio affiliates. a good way to watch it a little bit differently. As props go up, we'll try to give you some kind of advantage to make some money. And then also tomorrow morning, I will go on the morning after with my buddy Ben Stevens as we recap the draft, see what kind of movement we have for, let's say, winning the NBA championship, Eastern or Western Conference championship, and start to preview NBA free agency, which kicks off in 8 days.
Coach, thank you so much for joining me here and sharing your insight into the draft tonight. Enjoy this draft. You have a list of phenomenal shows today, so everyone make sure you go check it out. Coach, where can people find you on socials?
Yeah, they can find me at Coach Young NJ on Twitter, JRY02 on IG. And take a look out. I'll be posting stuff during the draft, things that I see as picks come up. I'll try to give people my thoughts on specific picks that are made as the night goes on and tell you how that could change the betting market in regards to your favorite team.
Thank you, Coach. Best of luck. I will be tuning in to your serious show. I can't wait. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.